Dr. Marie Davidová. I find her a wonderful force of nature, an international personality who has worked in different fields and works in different fields and with multiple groups. She is an architect, an academic, and a person who forms design learning and design practice communities. And she's going to be talking, I think, about ecosystem interventions. She in particular has developed a methodology called SAAP, Systemic Approach to Architectural Performance. And I'm handing over to you, Marie.
Thank you very much for the introduction. I will share my screen. So, yes, I will be talking about actually oscillating between being inside and outside of the system. So I will try start here with Kenny's statement. There is nothing like the real thing. And the discussion will be about multicentered design. And through multicentered design, we will be discussing about connecting what is, which keep in mind there is nothing like the real thing, and what if. So there will be synergy between the two, and discussing non-real thing can be our imaginary things, and we might believe they are happening. And that will be discussed for cross-species co-living. And I specifically work with urban environment, but also with other places. So don't get confused. The same like previous speakers, I will talk in plural. And the reason is I don't think I'm an emperor, but all of my work has been done in collaboration with many other people, with many other expertise. The way I work is, yeah, exactly as the introduction said, I'm an academician. I am also chair of an NGO. And I do practice lately mainly through the NGO, but I'm also a practitioner. And what I mainly do, not only, but I do research by design through experimental studio teaching. So if we talk about multicentered design, the thing is, if we talk about multicentered, when you bring to table several different stakeholders or agents, how we work is actually we ask people to first of all map their own universe to understand what is their own universe, which they visualize in so-called minimaps, and then they start relating their universes across the table and generating a gigamap across relations, reorganizing their minimaps and finding relations and finding synergetic solutions. We do real life prototypical interventions in full scale, which I will then get to. It's something I call real life co-design laboratory. So we experiment with real life. Obviously we receive feedback from the real life environment, which is reflected, and then this diagram is feedback looping all over and all over again endlessly. So this is a gigamap by one of my students who actually had to relate all minimaps across our design studio unit, where he had to interpret each relation between different minimaps and how there can be found synergy for synergetic prototypical intervention in urban environment. This is an example how it is done in the workshop. So here are students who all mapped their own universe about certain topic. In this case, it was a bridge over the river that could be for cross-species users. And then they start finding relations, and through finding relations, they find synergetic solution. Then they make a collaborative design together. This becomes more messy when we do co-design with local communities, where people have different agendas and different visions. and we integrate it with prototypes. People have tangible objects, they co-create those tangible objects and understand what it is. It generates interest and generates more feedbacks from the audience, and also DIY. I will get to that point later. So this would be one of the example of the prototype. This is a responsive wood insect hotel that is then placed into real life, and as you can see, there is that algae living on it. So this is the co-design with the real life environment. It is inhabited by different species and it coexists with the environment. So suddenly you are getting outside of the system, get the spot to the environment, you start your reflective observations, and you can update the system. This would be another example where we invited the different performers. So the performers were completely free in their performance. They just had to relate to the prototype and bring new interpretation of your prototype, of your research. Therefore, they update your research and co-create your research in the same time by their interpretation. This would be Blackbird that brought the new interpretation to that pavilion, which we actually realized our intervention was very important for the ecosystem, because within urban environment, birds have too little spots to sit on and rest, so they die of exhaustion because everybody puts the sticks with the needles on their windows, so birds don't sit on it and don't put their droppings. So that's how the urban ecosystem is excluding other species. So generating this urban furniture for multiple users with their own interpretation is actually very important. This is another example extending the habitable landscape by moss. This pavilion brought a beautiful interpretation to our work. We got something like £100 budget for this pavilion, and we were asked to generate pavilion for festival. And I just said, okay, if £400, we just make it out of air. So we did, and we used this pavilion from the balloons. And what was co-designed with the beautiful urban ecosystem was that actually with the morning humidity, the pavilion went down, getting dew on it, and it was sleeping at night. And in the morning, with increasing afternoon, the pavilion stood up and actually made the meeting point for the festival when the social events were happening. This was again urban furniture, again interpreted by its users, something we call opportunistic use. Basically, you generate environment that can be interpreted by whoever wants to use it and find their interpretation. So it is co-created. You are inside and outside of the system, by being creator, but also being democratic. Similar example when local scouts were planting blooming species on our structure to invite early pollinators, and over the winter they co-designed those bird food that they were hanging over it. This would be another intervention with the insect hotel. We engaged how to actually interact with larger ecosystemic network. So this is our ecologist that is teaching kids how to do seed bombing of blooming plants. So the pollinators who are living in that insect hotel have food, have honey producing species. And then of course, as the insect hotel is a hotel for insects, it is also It is also a fast food restaurant for the birds and bats in the region. So through small intervention, you can do large ecosystemic change. Having this reflection with birds moving to the neighborhood, we made another event when we taught kids how to make bird foods. the species to survive winter and so on. This would be a reflection from invited artists who did this augmented reality game about interpretation of the intervention in the ecosystem. And what we learned from that demo was that they gave us QR code so that people download their app, and we realized a very great thing, that if we engrave QR code on our prototype, then we can actually place on our website the DIY recipes with the code how to make them. So our intervention can be much more generative, actually spreading into larger community. So by very small input, you can get quite a large generative input. This would be my unit here in Cardiff. If I go to the website, the students have been designing. They made a competition about their designs about ecosystemic interventions, integrated local community in here in Cardiff in Grangetown with DIY recipes. So that has spread all over. I will just scroll to that. I will send you the link to the blog. What we are working on now is actually integrating those cross-species co-living systems with economic systems. The discussion is that current economic models, actually they are purely dependent on the ecosystem, but they don't integrate ecosystem into the models. So we are asking the questions now: can the butterfly be paid for pollinating your tomato in order to harvest it? And if you pay the butterfly, can you extend the meadows for the butterfly to have edible landscape in its neighborhood, and so on. This is actually not so naive. This is an example of the river in New Zealand that got legal personhood, and the way, I mean, the river itself probably won't go to court, but it is represented by Maori people who will go for court in order to act on behalf of the river. So it is possible to integrate a blockchain system that doesn't require a bank when dendrologists will act on behalf of the tree, the same way how we do that in our Giga Mapping workshops where we invite multiple expertise. So this is already my practice project, which I work on in Prague, which is actually dealing with the system and bringing token economy into the neighborhood. We are regenerating and we are mapping different stakeholders and then regenerating the local system. I will go very fast through that because it's just, you see feedback loops between different stakeholders and the different services each other produce to each other. Just there. I think I'm running a bit short of time, so I will just scroll through this example, which is feedback loop of my research. There has been practice project in 2011 where I started this research by competition entry that had one difficult task to keep to not use any energy and in the same time keep a stable environment. And that's how I started to research the responsive wood concept, which is working on based on material performance and closes and opens based on relative humidity and temperature. So you regulate the environment. So this is how it's breathing when it's fully open. This is how it's breathing when it's full, half closed. And what I discovered is actually that if you grow the algae on top of it, it warps more because the moisture content is lower in the dry weather, whilst it doesn't warp the other direction when the moisture content is too high. So going through that, I just want to show some examples. I have done a lot of research through historical examples. It is inspired through traditional architecture. And I did research on semi-interior spaces, which I discovered have always served for cross-species co-living in urban environment, enabled different parts. So that would be the gigamaps I mapped. This would be study about people in Cappadocia co-living with pigeons. So there have been cultures and there are still cultures. This is Portugal, where people couldn't grow vegetables and fruit trees in the city unless they have those breathing walls that are regulating the climate. So there has been cross-species co-living has been common across different cultures and different regions all over the globe for communities survival, and I'm afraid we cannot survive without them. So getting back to this example, this is the Cappadocian mapping, and this would be then again competition entry that is using this mapping across different cultures. They have been specifically from extreme climates, because we are now meeting extreme climates even in the mild region, and that would map it into competition entry. And then we get back to this insect hotel, or this insect hotel, where actually it is using the concept of responsive wood for generating diverse climates. These are different chambers. There are diverse climates for supporting biodiversity, because different species have different climatic preferences. So it is generating a variety of climates for variety of species within urban environment. And then I get to conclusion. This would be gigamap, quite old gigamap, when I once mapped different of the projects I have been working on, and mapping feedback loops between different agents that have been involved in the performance of those projects. These are just some examples, and actually I have been concluding that the most benefits for other agents, the most benefits for humans as well. So I would like to discuss the transition towards Post-Anthropocene, that is transiting towards biodiversity and climate change adaptation through multicentred and multispecies design. And that is a transition from what we call human-centered to non-anthropocentric. And this is the research by design done through various feedback loops. That is done through ecosystemic prototypical interventions, their hyper-objective relations, and their historical reference studies. This is a transition from Jan Gelko's Cities for People towards the participation of both biotic and abiotic agency, one feedback looping ecosystem, and that is happening through what I call real-life co-design laboratory. Thank you. If you are interested in the field, you can scan this QR code and follow my publications. Thanks.
Wow, thank you very much, Marie. That was a visual feast of graphic variety and creativity. My wife is a specialist in early years and play and so on. So I recognize some of the aspects of, for example, the way very young children morph the world and change it. You can turn a napkin or a piece of cloth into a doll or something. You can turn a fallen tree into a rocket ship or a train or anything you like. So it went from there to, at the end, we were looking at a post-Anthropocene world, or let us say a new kind of Anthropocene world in which human beings live more with nature in a more integrated way, with very interesting challenges around, for example, the question of rivers. Can you represent a river as a kind of person that needs to be defended in the world? Wonderful. So I looked at the chat, and I didn't find anybody in there who was really asking a decisive question about this. But I would like to
There is
turn
somebody
to
raising
Janos.
hand. Yeah.
To Janos, if I'm pronouncing your name right, Janos. I've emailed you so many times, but we've not spoken. So please, your question. Janos Korn.
You are muted.
You
Yeah.
may be muted still.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, good. I don't know if it's good or bad, but the thing that came out of this presentation, at least to me, is the idea of interpretation for use. And I don't know if it's right or not, but that is a very useful idea. And the question is, would it be possible to translate this idea into some kind of a methodical approach that can be taught and people can use for application?
Yeah, that's. I mean, yes, I work. I mean, all my work is about methodology. What is partially different about method and methodology, besides that methodology is combined of several methods, is also that it's adaptive. So I don't think there can be real method like a recipe. Do this step, then this step, this step. I don't think, at least within my work, I don't think that can really work. But we have a set of methods and methodologies which are learning from, combining and adapting. I must say I have never worked the same way in any of the projects, and all of my projects are interconnected. But I mean, because exactly what is cybernetics about, because you get feedback, and when you get feedback, you adapt your methodology based on the feedback. So I don't think there is a recipe. There is a set of tools, there is a set of approaches, but I think methodology has to be adaptive, and actually has to always adapt to feedback and develop. It would be quite boring if we would say that there is a recipe how to solve problems, right?
There's a good provocation.